Hi everybody, Matt Lawton here, and this is the Astrological Wings channel. I'm going to take a look this week at the astrological weather report for the week of July 15th through the 21st, and it is a big week. Two very big events this week. We have Mars conjuncting Uranus, which we got a taste of this weekend already, and then next weekend a full moon at the 30th degree of Capricorn, conjunct Pluto, off a trine to Uranus, sextiling Neptune, off a T-square with Eris and Chiron. So very big, active full moon in Capricorn at the critical 30th degree. So a lot to talk about this week. It is going to be a week of changes. Lots of changes that may come very rapidly. So that's what we're going to talk about mainly this week. First, a little business. The astrological weather report and the astrological winds channel is available every week on YouTube. And if you have a YouTube account and you like what you see, I'd really appreciate it if you become a follower. And remember to turn your notifications on. And remember, it's a free service. So I'd really appreciate it if you not only become a follower, but you pass the information, the link, on to somebody else who you think might enjoy it, and let them take a look. That's really the main way I like to let it grow. Remember also, it was a podcast long before it was a YouTube channel. It's been a YouTube channel for several years now. So it's also available on podcasts still. All you got to do is look up your favorite podcast, or get on one of your favorite podcasts, check it out, look up at Astrological Winds channel. You should be able to find it. And that frees you up, when you have a podcast, to be able to do other things, rather than watching a video. And remember too, like, the podcast numbers are growing, so that's another place where you can let people know about that link. Pass it on. Astrological Winds channel also has an Instagram page where I also post the link every week. Sometimes I post some additional info on Instagram each week too. So if you're not following there, you're missing that. And that's always just in commentary form. That is not in video or audio. I also place it on the link on my Facebook. It is a private Facebook. You have to friend me with Matthew, with 2 T's, Lawton, Lauten, and then you'll see it come up on your newsreel every week. And the best place to find it, besides the YouTube, if you become a YouTube follower, is on my website, www.astrologicalwinds.com. And that one is where I embed all the blogs. I keep them up for a few months, so you can always go back and check out past ones, especially monthly ones that you may have missed. And also, that shows all my professional services, and that's the other place you guys could really help me whenever you're ready for a reading, or somebody that you know is ready for a reading. I've been doing them professionally for over 20 years. And so, like, I was trained for 7 years to do that. I've done many readings. And when you're ready for some self-transformation, looking into your life and seeing, ready to make some changes, come and let me know. And my website has all the information on different types of readings. It's expanding, some different new ones coming through, so take a look at that. Also, if you know somebody who needs a reading, just have them refer to me, and just really appreciate anyone who has done that. The other way you can help out right now, as I am, if you want to give a donation to the blog, it does cost me a little bit of money to put the blog out. Every $5 that you give enters you into a chance to win a free reading, and I'll probably do that drawing by the end of the summer. So I've, gotten some in there. I'd like to get some more before I do the drawing. So my cash app handle is the $, then Matthew Lawton, all one word, 2 T's in Matthew, capital M, capital Lauten, and then my Venmo handle is at Matthew-Lawton. So those are ways, and every $5 you put in puts you in for a chance to win that. So, all right, let's get to this blog here. this week. There's a lot to talk about, and it's really going to be a week of rapid changes. And the big thing, and I almost mentioned it last week because it is today, on Monday, is that Mars is conjunct Uranus in Taurus. And this is, if there's any aspect that threatens stability, this is it. This is one that just shakes things up. It shakes the rhythms up. It shakes assets up. It shakes security up. It shakes finances up. It brings abrupt, rapid changes that come in usually through some kind of event. Many times it can be an event a human causes. So we had a perfect example of that. And this is a really big point for those of you guys who are learning astrology or wanting to learn more and use my blog, which I know a lot of you do, to get extra information on learning. Applying aspects compared to separating ones, okay? When a planet is coming in and making an aspect, it is stronger as it comes in and hits that exact point than it's weaker. So many times we'll see an incident when that planet gets into orbit. With an inner planet like Mars, it's only, a couple degrees, that orb of where that really activates. So when it gets to about 2 degrees of exactness, you can start seeing these events. Well, Mars doesn't move as fast as Mercury, Venus, or the Sun. So it activated this Mars-Uranus conjunction at the end of last week. What happened this weekend? We had a lone wolf kind of person go and try to assassinate one of the candidates in the United States. And it's very interesting because the Mars-Uranus conjunction was actually coming up during the current President Biden's inauguration speech. His initial inauguration speech, when he first won, had a Mars-Uranus conjunction rising in it, and it was a void of course moon. And I said, this is going to be a very odd presidency. It may have very abrupt, rapid changes to it, and I think we're starting to see some of that. But now, we're seeing that even come out with the other candidate, ex-President Trump, getting almost attempted to be killed by a lone wolf. That is rebellious action. That's what Mars-Uranus will make individuals do. And individuals will do these sudden impulsive actions that can create a lot of disaster, either on a big level or in your own life. If you're doing the same thing, if you're exploding out, and Mars-Uranus energy is so explosive that it's really, really hard to control it. So it will explode out. And many times this is also the energy of natural disasters. So that's another thing that could really, really come up. So it's one of these things that we're going to be very, very rebellious about, okay? And it can bring us a lot of impulsive actions that we regret very quickly. It can bring sudden health crises to our bodies. We have to be very, very careful about accidents and things like that. Now, what is a good way to use this energy? It's to really put it into innovative new projects that really suck up a lot of our energy. We can make big leaps in a short amount of time with Mars-Uranus. We can bring in a lot of change very rapidly. But, it's going to, in Taurus, though, it is going to shake up stuff like our assets, our regular rhythms, the things that we use for security, money, things like that can all get shaken up. And we may see that in the world, too. So very explosive energy, really good example of what happened this weekend as an example of that kind of energy. And that's going to be surging through all of us right now. So we need to be able to control that. Now, Thursday, there's a couple aspects. The first one is Sun sextile Uranus. And then it's also semi-square Jupiter. Now, that aspect will actually start to trigger all the full moon aspects. But it's a pretty positive day Thursday, actually. The other big aspect that day is Mercury is trining Chiron. So really, when you take those things together, it can be a very positive day where you're very open to making changes, and you're willing to create your own opportunities to bring change in, to break you out of a rut, and then you can find new motivations. You know, it's, to me, it's almost like being in the zone mentally. These two aspects together, Sun sextile Uranus and Mercury trine Chiron, it's like really, you know, being in a really good flow, but it's an active, acute, insightful flow that it's moving and it's going, and it's like just like being in the zone, you know. But instead of like being in the zone physically, it's like being in the zone mentally. So this can really, you know, bring a lot of you know, new exchanges, information that really stimulates our mind and our imagination and really gets us going. And in that also is a healing energy to the mind. It helps us, you know, really calm the mind. So it's like ideas can come at us really quickly, and we can learn from them very quickly too. And it really, you know, gets us fired up, gets us ambitious, gets our mind feeling good. It's acute, it's ready to go. So I really like that day. And then Venus, on Friday, Venus is trine the North Node. This is another really good aspect this week. This is an aspect where we can make new connections with people on a personal level. It can really bring in new friendships, or it can bring in new romantic partnerships. You know, it can up relationships that are already going into new levels where they're really flowing and in harmony, or it can bring new ones into our lives too. And it can also bring in new group connections, especially over artistic stuff, over creative stuff, you know, maybe even some financial stuff. But that's a really good one. There's a good flow of energy. There's a good obliging energy where people are willing to want to connect and help each other out and get that benefit. And that continues actually another nice energy on Saturday, once again tying into the full moon on Sunday, this one a little bit, but before hitting the full moon can act a little bit out by itself and bring in some nice energy. And that's on Saturday. We have Mars sextiling Neptune. Remember last week Neptune went retrograde, so standing still right at the very end, right, of Pisces. So here we have Mars just about ready to go into Gemini, and it is in the critical degree of Taurus, 30th degree, and Neptune in that critical 30th degree of Pisces, and they're sextile one another. And this is a really interesting aspect, because it brings us motivation to want to help each other out, to actually, like, it appeals to us to want to help each other out, to give of ourselves selflessly. As one yogi said once, this is the energy of self-forgetfulness. This is the energy of being really connected to what your ideals are, your spiritual beliefs, and giving from that, and kind of almost forgetting yourself. And it's excellent for meditating, contemplation, spiritual journeys, things like that, you know. But really working together on group projects that bring a lot of benefit to people, really into like mystical journeys, occult journeys, religious type journeys, inspirational energy that, you know, has you get a lot of new insights and reset your goals, you know, good for all kinds of slow movement energy too with the body, like yoga, Tai Chi, things like that, you know. So it really deepens, like, you know, our motivations from an idealistic point of view, and we really kind of connect to a deeper part of ourselves, and we want to bring that out to other people. And like I said, that's right before Mars changes signs. So that's one of the big things this week too. It's really probably the third biggest thing of the week, or after the Mars-Uranus conjunction and the full moon, and that is Mars going into Gemini. So Mars will be in Gemini until September 4th. So we've got 7 weeks of Mars and Gemini before it goes into Cancer, which is one of the signs it really doesn't like, and it'll probably be another big turning point in the energy at that point. But when Mars is in Gemini, we are motivated by our own ideas. We wanna our own thoughts. We want to get them out. We're very active in pushing them and communicating them to other people and getting that energy out, making announcements. We have a very sharp, acute mind that's also very competitive. It wants to debate. It's all right with even having an argument. It actually kind of gets off on that. It's a very quick thinking, very fast. It moves, and it's efficient. It's an efficient actor. It can get a lot done. The only thing is, it jumps from one thing to another. So when Mars is in Gemini, we have a tendency not to get a lot of our projects done. We'll do a little bit here, a little bit there, a little bit here, a little bit there, So, that's the kind of energy that it is. It's very impulsive in many ways. And like we can, things move very, very rapidly. And so therefore, sometimes we mess up, and we can be very impatient at times in wanting to get things done. So we can get a little bit inefficient when we start to get a little bit too distracted and getting off our path, or just kind of allowing too many things to grab our attention away, especially our focus mentally. But it is a really great time for traveling, but there's a little asterisk by that, because out of those 7 weeks that Mars will be in Gemini, when it's normally a really good time for traveling, the 3 of them are going to have Mercury retrograde. So that's not going to be the best time for traveling. That'll be basically the last 3 weeks of August. So if you're looking ahead in your traveling plans, that's a good thing to note here, that, prior to that, it's going to be a good time for travel. But once we get that Mercury retrograde, Gemini is the sign that Mercury rules. So Mars is going to probably lose a lot of its effectiveness in the travel thing. Okay, the big thing this week, we got a little bit of a chart here for us to look at. Here we've got the full moon at the 30th degree of Cancer and Capricorn. The moon at 30 degrees Cap, conjunct Pluto retrograde at 1 degree Aquarius, and that's opposite the sun at 30 degrees Cancer, right before the sun goes into Leo. This is next Sunday. And at the same time, separating from this square to Uranus and Chiron. And, actually, just so that we're really clear about this, too, look at this. It's actually a T-square, which I do mention, to the sun. So that's, the Chiron-Eris conjunction in a T-square. And then, fresh off this trine to Uranus in Taurus, which is fresh off that conjunction to Mars, which just went into Gemini. So Mars at 1 degree Gemini, Uranus at 27 Uranus, 27 Taurus. And then there's the really tight sextile. That's actually the tightest aspect that the full moon has, is this exact, almost sextile to Neptune in Pisces. And as you can see, Neptune is on the midpoint of Mars and the moon Pluto conjunction. So a lot packaged in there. Wow. And first of all, you guys know, I've heard this, I've said it before, 30th degree, right? A critical degree. It's a degree of change. It's either a degree where we're changing and transforming, or we're going to be bound to repeat many of the lessons that this full moon is about for us personally. And remember, what you want to look at is where 30 degrees is in your chart for Cancer and Capricorn. That will be the axis, the 2 houses that it will affect in your life. And remember, these full moons will affect you. This is like a transit. It's a short-term transit, but it's just as strong as some of those long-term transits. So if it's in your 5th, 11th axis, then it's going to be about relationships, right? And your creativity and that kind of thing. So that's, the kind of what you want to look at. And if you need to talk to me about a full moon reading, get in touch, see the website, and drop me a line, and I can do that for you. But anyway, getting into this, first of all, the moon's in Capricorn, right? Well, the moon doesn't like Capricorn very much, because Capricorn it's traditionally what we call in detriment. And the moon is very emotional, whereas Capricorn, it tries its best to cap emotions, to cap, literally, pun intended, emotions, right? Restrict emotions. And we do that with ourselves first. And then we do that with others by trying to control others and control the environment, control the situations around us so that they don't get into what we consider dangerous emotional territory. And for a Capricorn moon, that's a lot of stuff because Capricorn moon keeps it all inside, right? Keeps it all inside and really needs to find its own emotional satisfaction. It's very difficult for it to find it outside of itself. When it does, it immediately tries to go into controlling that energy. Now, the funny thing about this, it's an opposition, right? So an opposition forces us to make decisions, and it usually comes through relationships like this. We see reflections of ourselves in other people and the way they act, and we have to make decisions in relation to that in our own lives, right? But the funny thing is, the moon sign that it likes to be in the most is where the sun is, in Cancer. So what does that sun in Cancer want? It actually wants that emotional input. That's where the opposition is coming in. It wants that intimacy. It wants that closeness. That's what it wants for security. And the Capricorn moon is not really willing to give that. So that's where the whole stress of this full moon is. It's like the desire on one side to have that emotional closeness and intimacy, and then on the other side, trying to control that energy and keep it within ourselves. So that's where the tension comes from the full moon. Now, the conjunction to Pluto is very, very intense because what it means is we are seeing some of our deep, repressed emotional stuff come up and be shown in the light of this full moon. Stuff that's deep in our psyche, stuff that's deep in other people's psyches that we're close to. And it's very emotionally intense stuff. It can be dramatic, it can be passionate, and it can have us very much not in a good place to really make judgment on what's going on in our life right now. It gives us a very obsessive mind where it crowds out any kind of objectivity. These are like past psychological triggers that are going off under this full moon, and we can see it. We can see it in ourselves and we can see it in others. So the best thing to do is to use this, to use it for our own insights into our own psychology, into our own emotions, and just remember that people are probably going to act out on this. It's almost impossible when the moon is conjunct Pluto like this to not get obsessive about something and to not allow it to crowd out most of the other emotions that we're feeling inside us. And we have to be very careful. We can be the authors of our own destruction if we take that too far, especially emotionally. We can end up feeling really left out in the cold, alone, and just there's a lot of power issues underneath this. There's a lot of family issues underneath this. There's a lot of sexual issues underneath this. There's a lot of security issues that are underneath this. It's really stirring up our psyche. And we can very quickly, when we get in that zone, fall into using manipulation, using guilt, fear, things like that to try to control other people. Instead, we need to just really come to terms with where our psychic debris is and where theirs is and start to clear that stuff out. And we're only responsible for ourselves, so we can only do that for ourselves. We can't make other people do that for themselves, but we can clear other people's negative influences out also if we see that's what's going on. Not an easy thing to do. And when you think about what is it separating, let's look at the separating aspects first, because what that led up to a lot of the energy of the full moon, right? So the first one is that T-square with Chiron and Eris. And remember, we had that T-square this past weekend where the sun, moon, and Eris got in a T-square, and it probably affected a lot of relationships. So here, this is something that's showing something shook us up, something that was very painful, and a lot of lessons to be learned, brought a lot of chaos and change into our lives in the last few days, in the last week. And that has us possibly acting like that, where we have seen some really deep stuff, but we're still trying to control it, where what we really need is a connection with others. So this is like, could be part of what's driving this. And then, like I said earlier in the blog, earlier in the week, the sun sextiled Uranus, and now the moon had just trined this Uranus. So what happened was we probably did get some glimpses, some new insights of how we could bring change into the situation. It probably really inspired us. But this is a sextile and a trine, you guys, and as I said before, it's not going to be forced on us. If you got these new insights from the pain you went through, and now it's becoming really clear in the light of the full moon, you have to act on them. You have to invite that creative change in. You have to use the talents and express yourself for who you really are. That's what the Uranus part is saying here. You know, to take those opportunities, to go with that flow, to, you know, recognize where, and you know what, how you recognize that with Uranus? What insights got you excited about something, got your mind stimulated and going, and it felt good. And even though it might have felt like, oh, this is something new, it was like, yeah, I want to embrace this. I want to take this in. This has got my mind stimulated. It feels really, really good. So that's what we're looking for. And then we go right to that exact, almost exact sextile to Neptune, right? And that is like so potent, because then it's actually saying, when we have those insights, we can adjust a lot of our ideals, what we really believe in, and then use that as an inspiration to act on them, to take up opportunities, to enrich our imagination with these ideas that we got from Uranus, and then take them and use them and adjust those ideals, and then start to work towards them. Make connections with other people with similar ideals. It would be one way to do that, you know. But invite in those changes, you know. Invite in that energy, you know. It's a little bit tricky, because Neptune being on the midpoint of the moon, Mars, and on Pluto, Mars, shows that we can see a lot of the actions that haven't helped us, actually, that have slowed us down, like our weak spots. This shows our weak spots, actually. So Neptune's actually doing us a little bit of a favor right now. It's kind of showing our character weaknesses when it gets in between these two and this one. And that's showing us how we can take a lot of our own energy away, deflate ourselves. So we really want to, like, okay, you know, try to get out of some of this confusion that we're actually causing ourselves here by our own acts and by our own thoughts. So that's really, really interesting too. And one of the things too about this full moon, and go back to a bigger level on the mundane, remember, full moons always can bring in what? More natural disasters, more man-made disasters. And with this one, with Neptune in between Mars and Moon Pluto, and we got the full moon in Capricorn opposite, look for big storms like that hurricane we had a week ago that was a really big one and early in the season. Big storms over land in this full moon cycle. So there, you know, the hurricane season may be a real kicker, is what this thing is saying here. Now, what's really interesting, first of all, the ruler of this chart is Saturn, which is not really doing much right now. It's retrograde. Remember, it went retrograde a few weeks ago in Pisces around 2019 degrees, and we're not really aspecting much. It's trining Pallas, and I think once again that's showing a lot of the problem with the moon Pluto and the moon in Capricorn that can really get us stuck and being left behind, being the person that's left behind in this critical degree one, would be being stuck on our own ideals again. Saturn retrograde in Pisces, thinking there's an us versus them when there's really not. And look what that can lead to with a Mars-Uranus conjunction. Really crazy events, right? So that's, showing that could be part of the makeup of why we're still trying to control things emotionally, is that we still have an us versus them attitude. Now, there's 3 other transits on Sunday that are significant while this full moon is going. The first one, Mercury is actually squaring Uranus. Mercury's right about here. Is squaring Uranus. So that shows, once again, it's very much like a lot of ideas are coming at us, and it can spin us out. There's a lot of insights, a lot of perceptions, but a lot of them are like, can get us really obsessed and get us really worked up and nervous. But the thing is, there's some really brilliant ones in there. And those are the ones that, like I said, if we felt enthusiastic about them under that trine sextile to Uranus with the full moon, those are the ones we want to grip onto. But this can once again get us very worked up. This whole full moon can get us in a very obsessive mind and have us really go down rabbit holes, that we have a hard time getting out of. But there's 2 nicer aspects going on too at the same time. One of them is Mars is trining Pluto exact, and that is, if you want to use this full moon to its best event, it's to allow creative transformation in. It's allow it to come into your life, to make those changes, to clear things out. And that brings benefit not only to you, but to others around you, to stimulate the ambitions that are the ones that bring transformation to your life on all levels of your life, whatever that may be: relationships, business, home, family, your life journey, your life path. You just want to take, this is a time where we've learned a lot of our lessons, and we can be courageous and brave about it and move forward and create that change, allow reformation to come in. It's a perfect time to make those changes, to have new objectives, to update, and you're in more power, so you can not only use that power for yourself, but use it to benefit those around you too. Embrace the change, move forward on this critical degree full moon. This will help us do that. Okay, and then also Venus is sextiling Jupiter, a beautiful aspect. Another one of opportunities where if we are using this, we can create our own opportunities. We can find other people who we can up our relationships with them and give benefits to one another. This is great for giving and getting benefits from friends. This is great for getting new friendships. Romance, again, is another thing, and upping up that starts to develop in some of your other relationships, or there may be a new one that comes in. You can get financial benefits from this, so it's really good. But it's once again, it's a sextile. It's not going to dominate this unless we work with those other energies well and bring those changes in that we saw under the Mars-Uranus, and going back to the trine and to the moon and the sextile to the sun, that were born out of the tension that we got out of the Chiron and there, and then that helps us upgrade our ideals and brings us those opportunities in. And we can be very on top of that game, like I said, but we can also get very, obsessive and overwhelmed. So this is like, we want to invite this transformation in. This is a week where we really can bring it in. All right, you guys, that's what I got for this week. This is Matt Law, and this is the Astrological Winds channel. This is a free video service that I do on YouTube every week. I'd really like you to become a follower if you're not. And I also need you to right now turn the link on to somebody else. Remember, it's also available on podcasts. Look it up on Astrological Winds channel. Find all the links to my blogs, all the links to my services. I need your support. It's www.astrologicalwinds.com. Been doing charts for years, professionally trained, please check out my services. I'll work with you if your finances are constrained. It doesn't hurt to ask. My email is matthure823@gmail.com. All that information is right there. Remember, you can also find me on Instagram. The Astrological Winds channel is available there. Also, all kinds of different services for groups. If you're a student looking to learn some more, also available for that. So you're going to pass that link on right now, and if you want to support the blog, please give a $5 donation, and you'll be entered into this chance. And if you're ready for that reading, I'm ready for you also. All right, you guys, I'll see you all next week. This is a potent one. Let's watch it go down. Let's make those changes. Let's embrace those changes, because otherwise we're going to be forced to go through a lot of hard stuff again. All right, I'll see you all next week. We're going to talk about the sun going into Leo. We're going to talk about Mercury going into Virgo. And also Chiron goes retrograde next week, joins the outer planet retrograde parade. I'll see y'all then.